A Saturday morning. A burger joint full of leather-clad bikers. And a 10-year-old boy who walks in holding a crayon drawing. "This is the man who took my brother," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can you find him?" What happened next would prove that sometimes, the ones who look the toughest have the biggest hearts. The Saturday morning crowd at Rick's Roadhouse Burgers was thick with leather and chrome. 30-something bikes lined the parking lot, their engines still ticking as they cooled. Inside, the Ghost Riders had claimed every booth and barstool. Their weekly ride-out pit stop turning the diner into a thunder of laughter, clinking glasses, and war stories from the road. Nobody noticed the kid at first. Gabe Keaton stood just inside the doorway, clutching a piece of paper folded into a tight square. 10 years old, swimming in hand-me-down jeans, looking smaller than he should. His sneakers were scuffed, his jeans a size too big, held up by a belt with extra holes punched into the leather. His eyes scanned the room with the kind of focus that didn't belong on a child's face. "Hey, little man," one of the bikers called from a corner booth. "You lost." Gabe didn't answer. He walked straight through the crowd, weaving between tables until he reached the back wall where a man sat alone. Shade. Tall, scarred, and quiet. The kind of guy who listened more than he spoke, who noticed things others missed. Shade looked down as Gabe stopped in front of him. The boy's hands were shaking. "I need your help," Gabe said, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. The conversations around them began to fade. Heads turned. Shade set down his coffee and leaned forward. "What's going on, kid?" Gabe unfolded the paper and placed it on the table. It was a drawing, done in crayon and pencil, surprisingly detailed for a child's hand. A white van with a plumbing logo on the side. The front left headlight was shaded dark, broken. The fender had a distinctive dent, shaped like a crescent moon. In the corner, written in careful block letters, was a partial license plate. "This is the man who took my brother," Gabe whispered. "Can you find him?" Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped moving. The diner held its breath. Shade's jaw tightened. He picked up the drawing, studying every line. "When?" "Tuesday afternoon at Fletcher Park. Lucas was on the swings. I went to the bathroom for maybe 2 minutes." Gabe's voice cracked, but he pushed through. "He's my twin. He doesn't talk. He's autistic. He gets scared easy." One of the other bikers, a broad-shouldered man with a salt and pepper beard, walked over. "Jerome, chapter president." He looked at the drawing, then at Gabe. "The police working this?" "They said they are." Gabe's fists clenched. "But we're foster kids. State wards. I don't think they're trying hard enough. Everyone keeps saying he probably wandered off, that he'll turn up. But I saw the van. I saw the man grab him." Jerome's expression darkened. "You saw it happen?" Gabe nodded. "I was in the bathroom. When I came out, Lucas was gone. But I saw the van driving away fast. I memorized what I could. Drew it as soon as I got back to the group home." Shade exchanged a look with Jerome. The kind of look that said everything without words. "What's your name, son?" Jerome asked. "Gabe. Gabe Keaton." Jerome crouched down to eye level. "Gabe, I want you to listen to me. We're going to help you. But I need you to tell me everything you remember. Every detail. Can you do that?" Gabe's shoulders relaxed slightly. He nodded. The other Ghost Riders gathered around as Gabe described the van, the man's build, the direction they'd driven. Shade pulled out his phone and took photos of the drawing from multiple angles. Another biker, a woman named Raven with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, started typing notes into her phone. Jerome studied the license plate fragment. Something clicked in his memory. 2 days ago, on the CB radio during a long haul, he'd heard chatter about a white van matching that description seen near the industrial district. At the time, it was just noise. Background static. Now it was a lead. "We ride in 20 minutes, Jerome announced to the group. "Diesel, you take North County. Check every gas station, every truck stop. Raven, you coordinate with the women's riding group. Get this drawing out on social media. Shade, you're with me. We're hitting the industrial lots." Gabe watched as the Ghost Riders transformed. Phones out, voices clipped and focused. What had been a lazy Saturday morning became an operation. Jerome put a hand on Gabe's shoulder. "We'll take you back to your group home. Give me the address." I can help, Gabe said quickly. I can show you where. You've already helped more than you know, kid. That drawing? That's evidence. That's a starting point. Jerome's voice was firm but kind. Let us do what we do best. You've done your part. As the bikers filed out, engines roaring to life in the parking lot, Shade knelt beside Gabe one more time. Your brother's lucky to have you, he said quietly. Gabe looked up at him, tears finally breaking through. Just bring him home. His voice broke on the last word. He'd been strong for days, drawing, planning, walking into this diner full of strangers. Now, with someone finally listening, the weight of it threatened to crush him. We will, Shade promised. We don't leave anyone behind. The Ghost Riders rolled out information, 30 bikes strong, carrying with them a crayon drawing and a promise made to a desperate child. The hunt had begun. By noon, Gabe's drawing had been photographed, enhanced, and sent across 3 counties. Jerome's network moved fast. The Ghost Riders weren't just a motorcycle club, they were mechanics, truckers, warehouse workers, shop owners, people who knew the roads, the back alleys, the places where someone trying to stay invisible might hide. Diesel hit the northern route first, his bike cutting through the Sunday traffic like a blade. He pulled into a Flying J truck stop just outside Millerton, killing his engine near the diesel pumps. The attendant, a guy named Carlos who'd sold diesel parts before, was wiping down pump handles. Need to show you something, Diesel said, pulling out his phone. He swiped to Gabe's drawing. White plumbing van. Busted headlight. Dented fender. Seen anything like this? Carlos squinted at the screen, then shook his head. Not here, but try Marv's Auto Supply off Route 9. They get a lot of contractor vehicles. Diesel nodded, fired up his bike, and was gone. 15 miles south, Raven sat in a coffee shop parking lot, her laptop balanced on her bike's tank. She'd already posted the drawing to 6 Facebook groups, Missing Children networks, local community watch pages, trucker alert boards. Within minutes, the shares started climbing. The numbers doubled, then doubled again. Her phone buzzed. A message from a woman named Tina who ran a food truck near the industrial parks. I've seen that van. Tuesday evening, maybe 6 p.m. Pulled into the lot behind Morrison Supply. Driver looked sketchy. Kept the engine running. Raven forwarded the message to Jerome immediately, then typed back, Did you see which way he went? The reply came fast. East, toward the old warehouse district. Jerome and Shade were already in the warehouse district when the message came through. The area was a graveyard of failed businesses. Loading docks stood empty, fences rusted through, windows shattered and dark. Perfect for someone who didn't want to be found. They parked their bikes 2 blocks away and walked, boots crunching on gravel. Jerome's eyes swept every corner, every shadow. Shade moved like his name, silent and alert. There, Shade said, pointing to a security camera mounted on a shuttered warehouse. Still has a power light. Jerome pulled out his phone and called a contact. Jackson, I need footage from a security camera on an industrial boulevard near the warehouse district. Last 4 days. Can you pull it? Give me an hour, came the reply. They kept moving. Behind a chain-link fence, Jerome spotted tire tracks in the mud-wide, commercial treads. Fresh. He took photos from 3 angles. Meanwhile, across town, a biker named Torch was making rounds at gas stations with printed copies of Gabe's drawing. At the 5th stop, a teenage cashier's eyes widened. Yeah, I remember this van. Came in Wednesday morning, like 2 a.m. Guy bought cigarettes and energy drinks. Paid cash. Kept looking at the door like he was expecting someone. You remember what he looked like? The kid hesitated. Tall, maybe 40. Baseball cap pulled low. But I remember his hands, paint or grease under the nails. The whole van smelled sharp, chemical. Bleach, maybe. Torch typed every word into his phone and sent it to the group chat. The Ghost Riders were building a timeline piece by piece. By mid-afternoon, Jerome's phone rang. Jackson, got your footage. Sending it now. Jerome opened the video file on his phone, Shade leaning over his shoulder. The camera angle was wide, grainy, but clear enough. Just before 7 on Tuesday evening, a white van rolled into frame. The front left headlight was dark. The fender had a crescent-shaped dent. That's it, Shade said, his voice hard. They watched as the van parked behind the building and the driver stepped out. Tall, wearing a cap, movements nervous and quick. He disappeared into the building for 11 minutes, then returned to the van and drove east. Jerome zoomed in on the license plate. The angle was bad, but he could make out 4 characters. Exactly what Gabe had written. "We've got him," Jerome muttered. He immediately called Detective Morris, the lead investigator on Lucas's case. "Detective, this is Jerome Cowan with the Ghost Riders. We have video evidence on the Keaton abduction. White van, partial plate match. Timestamp places it near the scene. I'm sending it to you now." There was a pause. "Mr. Cowan, I appreciate citizen involvement, but, with all due respect, Detective, we're not asking permission. We're giving you a lead. What you do with it is your business, but we're not stopping." Jerome hung up and looked at Shade. "We keep moving. I want eyes on every supply lot, every warehouse within 5 miles of that camera." The Ghost Riders split into pairs, combing the area. Raven coordinated from her laptop, cross-referencing property records with known sex offenders and prior abduction cases. Diesel checked with every mechanic and body shop, asking if anyone had recently repaired a van matching the description. At 4:30 p.m., a breakthrough. A biker named Knox was talking to the owner of a plumbing supply warehouse when the man mentioned something offhand. "Had a guy renting space in my back lot. Keeps a van out there. Weird guy. Pays cash. Doesn't talk much." Knox's pulse quickened. "This van white?" "Yeah." "Why?" Knox was already texting Jerome. "Found it. A back lot off Commerce Road, near the supply warehouses. Owner says renter pays cash. Stays off-grid." Jerome's response was immediate. "Do not approach. Eyes only. We're 10 minutes out." By the time the sun started to dip, 6 Ghost Riders had the lot surrounded from a distance. They didn't cross the fence. They didn't trespass. They watched, filmed, and waited. And in the corner of that lot, parked under a tarp that didn't quite cover it, was a white van with a broken headlight and a dented fender shaped like a crescent moon. The Ghost Riders held position as darkness settled over the supply lot. Jerome had parked his bike 3 blocks away, approaching on foot with Shade and Raven. They stayed in the shadows, phones recording every angle of the property. The white van sat motionless under its tarp, like a sleeping predator. "Been watching for 2 hours, Shade whispered, checking his watch. "Either he's not here or he's waiting us out." Jerome's jaw tightened. Detective Morris said he'd send a unit, but it's Sunday night. They're understaffed. Could be another hour. "We don't have another hour," Raven said, her voice urgent. "If this guy gets spooked," her phone buzzed. A message from Diesel, who was positioned on the east side. "Lights just turned on inside the building. Someone's in there." Jerome's mind raced. They couldn't storm in, that would blow any chance of prosecution. But they couldn't let this man slip away either. Not with Lucas possibly inside. "Raven, start a live stream," Jerome ordered. "Facebook, Instagram, everything. Title it Ghost Riders Assisting Missing Child Investigation. I want a timestamp on every second of this." Raven's fingers flew across her phone. Within seconds, the stream was live. Viewers poured in, the counter climbing faster than Raven could track. "Got it," she confirmed. "We're broadcasting." That's when the van's engine turned over. "He's moving." Knox's voice crackled through the radio. Headlights flared to life. The tarp slid off as the van lurched forward, heading toward the back exit of the lot. Jerome sprinted toward his bike, Shade right behind him. "Do not engage," Jerome shouted into his radio. "Follow at distance. Stay on camera. Detective, if you're listening to the scanner, we have a white van fleeing 782, Commerce Road, heading eastbound." For bikes roared to life simultaneously. The Ghost Riders formed a loose perimeter, keeping the van in sight but maintaining space. Raven kept her phone aimed forward, narrating into the stream. "We are following a vehicle matching the description in the Lucas Keaton abduction case. We are not interfering with the vehicle, only maintaining visual contact for law enforcement." The live stream exploded. Thousands watching. Comments flooding the screen faster than anyone could read. Someone tagged the local police department. Someone else shared it to a news station. The van turned onto Highway 47, accelerating. Jerome's bike matched the speed, staying 3 car lengths back. His headlamp illuminated the license plate clearly now. "Shade, you getting this?" Jerome called. "Crystal clear," Shade confirmed. His phone mounted on his handlebars, recording everything. The chase felt like hours but lasted less than 10 minutes. Then, ahead, red and blue lights appeared. 2 patrol cars formed a roadblock. The van slowed, hesitated, then pulled to the shoulder. The Ghost Riders stopped 50 yards back, engines idling. Jerome kept his radio open, his voice steady. "Suspect vehicle stopped. Multiple law enforcement on scene. We are standing by." Through the darkness, they watched as officers approached the van with weapons drawn. The driver's door opened slowly. A tall man in a baseball cap stepped out, hands raised. Even from this distance, Jerome could see the tension in the officers' movements. One officer moved to the back of the van. He opened the doors. Seconds felt like hours. Then the officer's radio crackled, and Jerome caught the transmission on the scanner frequency. "We've got a juvenile. Male, approximately 10 years old. Responsive. Requesting EMS to our location." Raven let out a breath she'd been holding. Shade closed his eyes briefly. Jerome's hands gripped his handlebars so tight his knuckles went white. "Lucas," he said quietly. "They found him." The live stream exploded with comments. Thousands were watching now, the number still climbing. News vans were already being dispatched. 15 minutes later, an ambulance arrived. The Ghost Riders watched as paramedics carefully brought out a small figure wrapped in a blanket. Lucas Keaton. He was shaking, clearly terrified, but he was alive. Detective Morris approached Jerome's position. His expression said he didn't know whether to arrest them or shake their hands. "You understand I should cite you for interference," Morris said. "You could," Jerome replied evenly. "Or you could acknowledge that we just handed you a child abduction suspect, with video evidence, witness testimony, and a live broadcast that's already been shared 10,000 times. Your call, detective." Morris studied Jerome for a long moment, then glanced back at Lucas being loaded into the ambulance. "The boy's asking for his brother. Keeps making hand signs." Gabe taught himself basic sign language to communicate with Lucas. Raven interjected, her voice soft. "He's been learning for 3 years. Morris nodded slowly. "We'll bring Gabe to the hospital. And Mr. Cowan." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Thank you. Officially or not, you brought this kid home." Jerome didn't smile. "We're not heroes, detective. We just did what needed doing." As the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing, the Ghost Riders remained at the scene, giving statements, handing over their footage. The suspect, identified as Martin Driscoll, a 42-year-old with a prior record for child endangerment, was placed in the back of a patrol car, his face blank with the realization that he'd been caught by a 10-year-old's drawing and a motorcycle club's relentless pursuit. Shade walked over to Jerome. Both men watching the taillights disappear down the highway. "Think the kid's going to be okay?" Shade asked. Jerome pulled out his phone, looking at the photo of Gabe's drawing one more time. The careful lines, the desperate hope in every crayon stroke. "He's got his brother back," Jerome said. "That's what matters." But both men knew the story wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. The hospital waiting room buzzed with fluorescent lights. Jerome sat with his arms crossed, exhausted but unwilling to leave, Shade beside him, both still wearing their leather vests. 3 other Ghost Riders occupied chairs nearby, none of them willing to leave until they knew both boys were okay. The door to the pediatric wing swung open. A social worker named Kaylee emerged, her eyes finding Jerome immediately. "Lucas is stable. Dehydrated, some minor bruising, but physically he'll recover. Psychologically?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "That's going to take time. He's extremely traumatized. Won't let go of his brother." "And Gabe?" Raven asked, standing up. Kaylee's expression softened. "That kid's tougher than most adults I know. He's been sitting with Lucas for the past hour, just holding his hand, signing to him. The doctors say Lucas has been calmer since Gabe arrived than he's been since they found him." Jerome stood. "Can we see them?" Kaylee hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. Lucas gets overwhelmed with too many people. They walk down the sterile hallway in single file, their boots silent on the linoleum. Through the window of the room, Jerome could see 2 small figures on the hospital bed. Gabe sat cross-legged beside Lucas, who was curled under a white blanket, his eyes fixed on his brother's hands as Gabe signed slowly, deliberately. Jerome knocked softly before entering. Gabe looked up, and the boy smiled for what felt like the first time in days. "You found him," Gabe whispered, his voice cracking. "You actually found him." Jerome crouched beside the bed. "You found him, kid. That drawing, that's what did it. You gave us everything we needed." Lucas's eyes shifted to Jerome, then quickly back to Gabe's hands. Gabe signed something, and Lucas nodded slightly. "He wants to know if the bad man is gone," Gabe translated. "He's gone," Shade said from the doorway, his voice gentle. "He's locked up. He can't hurt anyone anymore." That night, after the Ghost Riders finally left the hospital, Jerome sat on his bike in the empty parking lot. He didn't start the engine, just stared at the photo of Gabe's drawing on his phone, thinking about all the kids who ask for help and get nothing but empty promises. The story exploded. Within weeks, every news outlet from local stations to national networks had covered it. The video from Raven's livestream had been viewed over 2 million times. News outlets called it a modern-day rescue mission, though the Ghost Riders refused most interviews. Jerome gave one statement to the press. "We did what any decent human being should do. A child asked for help. We helped." But behind the scenes, something else was happening. Kaylee, the social worker, had been making calls. The group home where Gabe and Lucas had been staying was overcrowded and understaffed. Not a place for 2 boys who just survived a trauma like this. She reached out to the Ghost Riders with an unusual request. "There's a couple," Kaylee explained during a meeting at the clubhouse. "Mike and Susan Henderson. They're extended family within your community. Susan's brother rides with your chapter. They've fostered 8 kids over the years, specialized in tough cases. They want to take Gabe and Lucas." Jerome leaned back in his chair. "They understand what they're signing up for? Lucas is going to need therapy, specialized care. They know." Kaylee interrupted. "Susan's a pediatric nurse. Mike's a retired teacher. They've already started converting their spare room. They want this." Gabe and Lucas moved in with the Hendersons on a Friday afternoon. The house was small but warm, with a backyard and a dog named Bear who seemed to understand that Lucas needed space. Susan learned basic sign language within 2 weeks. Mike built Lucas a sensory corner with weighted blankets and soft lights. Gabe thrived. The worry that had lived in his chest for years began to fade. He joined Little League. He drew pictures that weren't sketches of vans and license plates, just cartoons and superheroes. Lucas's recovery was slower, but steady. He started therapy 3 times a week. The nightmares came less frequently. And one morning, 6 weeks after the rescue, he picked up a crayon and drew something. A motorcycle. Gabe cried when he saw it. 2 months after Martin Driscoll's arrest, the Ghost Riders held their annual charity run, a 100-mile ride raising money for child advocacy centers. This year, they'd added something special. At the front of the formation, attached to Jerome's bike, was a custom-built sidecar. Painted across its side in bold letters, "No child left behind." Gabe and Lucas sat inside, both wearing helmets decorated with stickers. Lucas's hands gripped the edge tightly, but he wasn't panicking. Gabe sat beside him, signing reassurances, grinning like this was the greatest adventure of his life. The ride started at dawn. Over 300 bikes joined the procession, a river of chrome and leather winding through county roads. People lined the streets, waving, cheering. News helicopters circled overhead. Halfway through the ride, Jerome pulled Gabe aside. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing fresh ink on his forearm. Gabe's original drawing, the one that started everything. The white van, the broken headlight, the license plate. Permanent. "Why'd you do that?" Gabe asked, staring at the tattoo. Jerome knelt down. "Because I never want to forget what one brave kid can do. You didn't give up on your brother. You didn't wait for someone else to save him. You made it happen." Gabe's eyes welled up. "I was just scared." "Brave people are always scared," Jerome said. "They just don't let it stop them." Lucas tugged on Gabe's sleeve, signing something. Gabe laughed through his tears. He says you're cool. For an old guy. Jerome laughed, standing up. Tell him he's pretty cool too. As the ride continued, the Ghost Riders carried with them more than just donations and awareness. They carried a story, a reminder that sometimes the system fails, and sometimes ordinary people have to step up. That a child's voice matters. That a crayon drawing can be more powerful than 1,000 official reports. And that some families aren't born. They're forged on the road, 1 mile, 1 promise, 1 rescued child at a time. 3 years later, Lucas would speak his first full sentence since the abduction. It happened on his 13th birthday. A few words, signed first, then whispered aloud while looking at a photograph of the Ghost Riders standing beside that sidecar. They came when I needed them, and Gabe, sitting beside his brother in the home they'd finally found, would add one more line, his voice steady and sure. They always will. Gabe's crayon sketch became more than evidence. It became a symbol, a reminder that no one is too small to make a difference, and no one is too tough to care. Share your thoughts below, and if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to embrace the journey for more stories that restore your faith in humanity. See you in our next video.